So Richard Ahiagba appeared on Good Morning Ghana, Randy Abe's show on Metro TV. And Richard Ahiagba made some personal confessions, which probably they are out of ignorance, which would be very, very shocking because Richard Ahiagba, a person of his caliber, a person of his portfolio would have been assumed to have had at least to a certain degree a knowledge in the electoral process as far as Ghana is concerned. But this guy made certain confessions which are really, really shocking. And Sami Jamfi, of course, being who he is, pointed it out as it is. Let's go and listen to what Sami Jamfi had to tell Richard Ahiagba and whether or not these things, Richard Ahiagba will be punished for it. Crime has no expiring date, as we all know. So we want to see, we are watching. We want to see what happens to Richard Ahiagba. Let's listen to Sami Jamfi.
A confession by Richard Ahiagba that he has committed a crime. Yes, that is what he has just done.
How?
I don't know who has been advising him because, like he said, per his stature, I would have expected him to have conducted himself to have conducted himself lawfully in this matter.
How?
Because when you are at this level, the expectation is that you should know the basic rudiments of our electoral process. Doc, voter registration in Ghana is governed by law. Voter registration in Ghana is governed by law. You cannot engage in registration and voting per your own whims and caprices. You must do so in accordance with law. Now, from what I gather from the circumstances of this case, clearly Richard Ahiagba is eligible to be registered as a voter in the Ketu South constituency because he's a resident of the area. He may not be ordinarily resident. I think he's ordinarily resident in Accra, but he hails from the place and therefore has a residence in the place. So for me, I have no issue with him registering there. The issue is that he himself has confessed to voting in the 2020 elections, both the presidential and the parliamentary, when his name was not in the voter register.
Wow. Let us be honest with ourselves here. Who would have been permitted to vote if not because they are the ones in power? In 2020, NPP Akufo-Addo was in power, and therefore everything at the time was skewed to favor everything of theirs. Therefore, a person who had not been on the voters register even was allowed to vote under Akufo-Addo. Come on, guys. All right, let's keep listening.
He himself, he says that he turned up at the polling station to vote on 7 December 2020. But that his name was not in the register.
It didn't be found.
It means it was not there.
Yeah, but he had
No.
Just hold on a minute. He says that he had his voter ID.
I know, he said that.
Which clearly states where and whatever. He
to
presented
vote,
it.
you don't need a voter ID card to vote in Ghana.
He says that he presented it. The EC looked through, they couldn't find his name. They did the biometrics. It didn't come up.
Yes.
But they had some list somewhere, quarantine.
There's nothing called a quarantine list in an electoral process.
And they allowed him to
That's
vote.
a cock and bull story. There is nothing called a quarantine list anywhere. Doc, this is the point. In Ghana, you cannot vote in any public elections unless your name is in the voter register.
So even if you've lost your card, but your name can be found.
Found in the register, you can vote. So
This is some really good public education. So this goes to mean that even if you've misplaced your voter's ID card and you can't find it, and you can't be authenticated and identified to the EC officials as permitted in the constitution or the CI, you should be allowed to vote. So in Richard's case, it's not about holding the voter's ID card. It's a matter of not being on the register. Let's keep listening.
So the primary condition that establishes your eligibility to vote is not even the voter's ID card, because you can lose your voter ID card. But if your name is in the register, whether you have a card or not, the law says you can vote. If your name is not in the register, you can't vote. Our brother here went to the police station. He has confessed that they searched for his name. His name was not in the register. His biometrics had not been captured. Therefore, he was not entitled to vote. He was not a registered voter. I am not making this up. The law is clear. What is the law that governs voting in Ghana? CI 127. Public Elections Regulation 2020 is the latest law on voting in Ghana. And if you check Regulation 32 of CI 127, this is what it says. Regulation 32. It says that identification and verification of voters. 32.1. A polling assistant may, before delivering a ballot paper to a person who is to vote at the election, require that person to produce a voter identification card in order, in order to establish that the person is the registered voter whose name and voter identification number and particulars appear in the register. So they ask you for your card to check if you are the one who has showed up and that your name and voter identification number is in the register. The sub-regulation 2 says, in the absence of a voter identification card, the polling assistant shall identify the name and particulars of the voter as recorded in the name reference list. So it goes on and on to tell you what the polling assistant can do after that. If your name is not in the register, there is no remedy for you. It means your card cannot be authenticated.
As it should, because we are in an era where anybody can just walk to a cafe or even sit in their own room and print out ID card. So anyone can print. Trust me, people can design and print voters ID card and it will look the same. The only way to cross-check is to marry it against the register. So if you are not on a register, done deal for you. There is no remedy. Keep listening.
It is useless, and therefore you are not entitled to vote. Now, Regulation 33 further says that a voter who desires to vote shall be present at a allotted station, and the presiding officer or polling assistant shall, after being satisfied that the voter is registered and has not already voted or is voting as a proxy, deliver the ballot paper to the voter. Is registered. So clearly you were not registered in 2020. That is why a new, fresh registration has been done for you.
Exactly my point. If he was registered in 2020, he wouldn't have been registered again. It is because he was not registered. That is why a new registration was done for Richard Ahiagba. For that matter, Richard voted in 2020 without being on the voters register. That amounts to constitutional breach.
You were not registered. If you were registered in 2020, a new registration would not have been done for you. Doc, you understand? You were not registered, and that is why your name was not in the register. And I have the register for the polling station where you voted. Do you know what they actually did? It's the impunity is what makes me sick. They actually wrote his name in ink in the register.
Hey, NPP. So for real, a pen and ink was used to write Richard Ahiagba's name on the register to aid him to vote. So unconstitutional. These people, you see, the CJ the other day was touting Akufo-Addo as being one of the best lawyers ever recorded in Ghana. My foot. How can someone who has overseen all the rot under his government and does nothing about it, blindly goes against every constitutionally mandated rule in the country and says nothing about it, be the best of a lawyer. Again, my foot.
I'm going to forward this to your producer.
That was on the voting day.
On the voting day?
Yes, because they couldn't find it.
Because his name was not in the register. It's as simple as that. They wrote it in ink. What would be that? In which country, tell me, in which country can you go to a voting center to vote? Your name is not in the register. The law says if your name is not in the register, you can't vote. And they write your name in ink to allow you to vote. That's the height of criminality, the height of impunity. So what happened in 2020 was a crime. And Mr. Ahiagba has confessed to committing that crime. Because he himself says that he went and his name was not in the register. The EC has checked their database. His details are not in their database. So why did he vote in 2020?
That is a question all Ghanaians need to ask. We all need to ask that question, and you know what? It should be posed to the wrath leader, the mother of all serpents, Akufo-Addo, who sees nothing wrong under his own government. Someone who a few days ago was being touted as the best lawyer ever, whatever existed in whichever, the Banana Republic is. Goes to you, Sami Jemfi, and the rest, the NDC team. Look, we are monitoring you guys closely. Should you guys come to power and nothing is done about all these things, then you will see the wrath from Ghanaians to you guys. It will be worse. So you guys take cues from this. This is GH First Media. We say it as it is, without fear and favor. Thanks for watching.